This is episode 30, A Desire to Inspire with Manny Patrick Vargas. Welcome to the Reignite Podcast. My name is Todd Judkins, a former naval officer and corporate consultant turned life coach, and each week we'll bring you an inspirational person or message to help you discover how to reignite your life, get back in the game, and thrive in everything you do. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's light the fuse and reignite. Today we have Manny Patrick Vargas on the podcast. Manny is an author, speaker, coach, host, and former restaurant owner. In November of 2005, Manny hit a transformational turning point and decided to embark on a path of self-discovery to understand how he could best impact those around him. Asking questions was integral on his path to bringing more awareness of self and of others into his life. Manny has since authored his first book, Las Vegas, The Art of Finding Joy in Sin City, and earned his certification in conference management and event planning. He is also a certified social and emotional intelligence coach. Manny is a self-actualized man and is called on to inspire others to live a life of purpose and creativity, encouraging lasting change to help guide them towards finding joy in the struggle of life. What is so incredible about Manny is that he is joining the Reignite podcast today just to simply add value to your life. I ask all my guests, is there anything I can do to support them since they have been gracious enough to give their time to better our world? Manny, true to form, only wants to share himself in hopes of adding goodness to the world. I am grateful to have him here today, so let's get right to it with Manny Patrick Vargas. Hey, Reignite Nation. Today we have Manny Patrick on with us for this podcast. Manny, how are you?
Dude, I'm blessed. And, for starters, out of the chute, we just touched on this, man. It's nice to see your face and to hear your voice again. We tried scheduling this, I think it was months ago. Yeah. And, schedules get a bit wonky. And sure enough, I think we were both thinking of each other as we discussed. And here we are, man. So happy to be here, my brother. Thank you for thinking of me, and let's have some fun today, man. That's what we do.
Oh, no, that's awesome, man. And you're right, because, when we all try to connect, sometimes it doesn't work out, but, it turns out that this was the perfect time and meant to be, so I'm grateful that you're here. So I want to start that you have an amazing, amazing life story, one that I've read, and it just touched me as to somebody who's gone through life's trials, and just shined all the way through it. And you did it growing up in Las Vegas.
Yeah, man.
Tell me, how do you do that? And I love Vegas. I got married in Vegas. So, but, Vegas is Vegas. So how did you do that?
First of all, let me give a big shout out to our Golden Knights, man. We were this close to winning the Stanley Cup, man. And I was just, as I was getting ready for this morning, I was listening to some radio tunes, and there was a guy who called into the radio station to say, listen, I've been in town as a local for 42 years of my life, and I've never had a sports team to follow. And just so you know, I'm a former sports guy as well. That's why I'm going this direction. I played sports growing up through college and everything. Wasn't good enough and didn't make it, but hey, that didn't matter. But he said, I've always been an NFL fan, never cared about hockey. But now, because of what the Knights just did for Las Vegas, I am forever a Las Vegas Knights, Golden Knights, and hockey fan. And I was like, that just, brought chills to my spine. But growing up here, man, was quite an adventure. And, if you had weeks upon weeks to do this podcast with me, I could share with you every fun detail. But in a nutshell, it was very traditional when I got to my 18, 19 years old of age, where I was involved on the Strip with hospitality and busing with restaurants and promoting nightclubs, and shortly thereafter got involved in drugs and gambling and what you would say alcoholism, and I had no control of it. It controlled me. And then finally in 2015, I decided to get sober. And as a result of getting sober after a decade's worth of just really killing myself softly, I think as the Lauryn Hill song goes, killing me softly.
One of my favorite ones.
Right.
I think Roberta Flack did it before her, though.
Is that it?
Yeah.
See, you probably know the depths of that much more than I do, man. I just know for that stuff, the surface stuff. But Getting sober changed my life forever. And as a result of that, I just decided to really figure out who I was, because what I learned early on was that I was born an entrepreneur. And it's, from birth, I was around the neighborhood down by the airport where I grew up, trying to, walk around with a weed whacker and a lawnmower, and I'd knock on doors and I'd ask people if they needed their lawn mowed or their weeds whacked. And I would say, hey, can I do this for some profit? And I remember this like it was yesterday. And we'd go to the next house and dogs would chase me out. And then baseball showed up, and that didn't work out because I wasn't good enough, as I just mentioned. And then sure enough, in my 20s, I was fortunate enough to open up 3 restaurants in the middle of this turmoil that I was going through. And because I was in my own way and I didn't have my priorities straight, it didn't last very long. And so then there was just constant roller coaster there. And finally, when I got sober, man, I got to tell you right then, it just, it removed all of the fog. Clarity set in, and man, I tell you what, I live it this day. I just, I became unstoppable, and I live that, and I wake up to it every single moment of my life now, and it feels so good.
Oh, that's incredible. And it's, I had a similar journey where, it wasn't really drugs or alcohol, but it was work and lifestyle, if that make any sense. I want people out there to know that, there's many forms that can take you down in life, and that there's always a way up. So, tell us, how did you find that path, to sobriety and to finding your passion? Because you're living in it right now, and that's what I want to celebrate.
That's a great question, man. And most people always, well, what changed your life, right? What happened? And for me, it was a combination of a lifetime of F-ups, right? It was failing so many times and not understanding why. And then finally, the tipping point was a woman, believe it or not. And we had spent such a great time together leading up to the event that helped me come to this decision. We were on a vacation. She was amazing. And, on one of our last nights out here, believe it or not, she lived in Europe. I mean, that's a whole separate story, because you can meet anybody from anywhere in Vegas. And by nature of what I was doing on the Strip, working for nightclubs, it was very normal. And we decided to go out for a night and party. And sure enough, I had one of my traditional nights out with, very wealthy friends that had the table and the bottles at the nightclub. And we were dancing center stage on the main stage booth. And, there's unlimited bottles of Magnum Patrons and vodkas, and the drugs are flowing. I'm taking Molly, I'm taking cocaine, and I'm just consuming. And then guess what? I wake up the next day. And I'll never forget, she was sitting right next to me, sitting upright in my bed. And I got up kind of hazily and, drunk still, whatever. And I looked at her, and she was pissed. She was very pissed. And I said, what's wrong with you playing stupid, fun, hungover Manny? And she just looked at me with the most dead serious look in her eyes towards me. And she says, I don't even know who you are anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? And so she started going through a list of things and activities that I did to her the previous night that I didn't even know I did, because I forgot. I blacked out. And she told me that, I threatened to beat her up. I tried kicking her out of a taxi. I told her to go the fuck home. Excuse my language, but this is very real. That I didn't want her there anymore. And, I just felt so lost because of that, because here we were off of 6 days of amazing time together. And in that moment, I was like, why does this keep happening to me? And this wasn't the first time. And it was on that day that I said, I am never, ever going to feel like this again. And so I asked myself one question. I said, well, what is it that's causing me to behave like this? And sure enough, it was drinking. So I said, what if I stop drinking for a couple months and try this thing out and see if it works? I'm really, really lucky, because at the time, my brother, he's still my brother to this day, like best friend brother. We used to ride together and die together, bad boys type stuff. And we've been through all the party days together back in college in San Francisco, and even into our adult 20s. A lot of this is together. And he actually ended up getting sober about 10 months before I did, and went to rehab for it and got clean. And so he started to lead the way as an example that this was possible. So I sort of environmentally started to see this stuff. And sure enough, it made it easier for me to give it up and say, well, if he's doing it, I can do it. And I think that was the turning point that led me down the path of starting to find out who I really was at the core. And it hasn't stopped, by the way. It's been, almost 3 years coming up in November since I got sober, but the constant interest in finding out who I am doesn't change. And it's always evolving and you're always learning something new and you're always trying to raise the bar and get around new people that are playing at a much higher level than you. And that forces you to do more and very often uncomfortable things that push your boundaries. But that's personal growth, like I said. So that's pretty much it, man. It's, I try to keep it as tight for you as I possibly can without taking up the whole show, because this story, like I said, I can tell it. So hopefully that helped.
Oh yeah, we can go in a lot of different directions. Baseball. I grew up playing baseball. I was similar story to you. You're all everything. I was all everything in high school, and then you get to the next level, and it's like everybody's like you. Yeah,
you got to really do something that separates yourself, and that's when reality sets in, right? It's like, I'm good, but how good am I?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where talent is usually a benefit, but I do look back now, Todd, and I think that, for the listeners that are out there, I really firmly believe that if you will, and this is something I did not do back then, if you're willing to outwork, right, and outperform and outmake the right deliberate and intentional efforts, that you can be the very best at anything that you do. Granted, you're not going to be Shaq because you're not 7'2", right? But if you put that daily, consistent effort and hard work into what you do, like there's no tomorrow, you'll end up somewhere at the top, even if you're unsure today where that might be.
I hope everybody listening caught that, because that was very, very powerful. And it's one of the life lessons that I've learned over time as well, especially when I go back and think about my baseball career, and just, I look back and I said, well, what could I have done to further my career forward? It was really just, work ethic. Just start outworking everybody else. I have the base talent, and it got difficult. And in some respects, I think, I went in another direction, as opposed to, if that was really my passion, really what I wanted to do, that I, just bear down, put the work ethic, and do everything with intention.
Right. I've got something here. And go ahead, buddy, because I just took a note yesterday on a book that I'm reading, and I'm going to see if I can pull it out real quick, because I highlighted it. You know that.
And that's really what this podcast is about, is the point, that Manny was making and that I was emphasizing, is that, live life with intention. You can reignite, no matter where you are, no matter what situation you're in, whether you're living in Las Vegas, and hitting the party scene, or, you're like me, just, grinding it out day by day, doing something that you're really not too passionate about, and just destroying your life just via lifestyle.
Right. You get to a point where you ask yourself, is this really all to life? And I think when you get a taste of what really matters, because I've lived on both sides, dude. I mean, I know what it's like to go out to the parties. I know what it's like to hang out with the celebrities. I know what it's like to be at the best events, festivals, and high on drugs. We're really, and I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, if I'm comparing my life today to when I was, when I was the Manny of, 2015 and before, the best times of my life were when I was high at the events, because there was not a worry in life. I mean, I was in such a great place because all the people and all the music, it was like the worry was gone. The relief was totally omnipresent. But then when I was off of that, I had to go back to real life, because my life sucked so bad that I was like unbelievably miserable, and I would have to go back to the well to feel like that again. And when I discovered the essence of who I was by investing in personal growth and in mindset and chipping away at that tree nonstop, man, I live with the same excitement and enthusiasm now today as a sober individual than I did with doing all the other stuff back then when I was off on all different kinds of planets. And it is a night and day and 100x more empowering feeling for anybody out there that's listening, that may be in that position, kind of on and off the fence. Like, if you're going to the well and going to find, because here's the thing, and I want people to really pay attention to this, Todd, the party or the drug or the alcohol or any of that stuff, all it is a vehicle. That is not the problem. You realize that? Those are just tools to help an individual feel better about something in some particular situation. Therefore, they consume it and they use it to help them get from a point to a point. And so you don't need those tools or those vehicles when you have your identity figured out, because you'll no longer try to acclimate to what somebody else might be doing to make you feel good. You'll start to generate your inner happiness from the inside instead of the outside.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And what I tell people is that, we can spiral down, but you can spiral up as well. And if you're looking for a drug of choice, I tell people I believe in the physiological setting of the body, in that your body is the best drug dealer you'll ever know, right? Because you have the capacity in you through, dopamine and a lot of the hormonal productions of your body. It provides you what you need. You focus on that inner self, you focus on that personal development, and that's how you tap into that.
It's the root, my friend. And Todd, I appreciate what you're doing here, man. This is fantastic. Reignite. I think the name is fantastic. I know you sound like a radio guy, a podcast guy. You got that natural knack for it. And it's, believe it or not, I don't talk about this very often anymore, because in the ascension of my story and of my life, it's grown very heavily into very professional, specific skill sets, right? So speaking and selling on stage, and very, very high level advanced speaker training and things of that nature. And, I'll meet with clients, and I do a lot of accountability coaching with a lot of our customers that come through our programs across the country. And I get to the root, because the root is always you, right? If you don't have the root established of shaping your success, then guess what? Nothing you ever try to do is going to work, because it always comes back to who? You. And so for you to open yourself up and to provide people the opportunity to tell their story again, you forget how powerful that stuff is, because this is very real for people, right? It is overly a problem with society in all different shapes, sizes, and forms all across not just America, but the world. So I just wanted to give kudos to you for doing this on the regular, and also for allowing me to come in here and do that. And I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, because I found it here in my book with this. I'm reading a book on investing, because now it's like, cash be coming in, having some fun. Now it's like, okay, I'm putting the money away. Before, check this out, before I'd make all the money in the nightclubs, guess where I'd take it? Right to the tables, man. It was like gone, right? But this was such a profound point last night, and it made so much sense. But it was, why is it so hard for most people to follow a simple plan, right? The plans are out there, the examples are out there, and this is it right here. This is gold, right? Check this out, listeners. It's because following a simple plan to become rich is boring. Following a simple plan to become rich is boring, right? Human beings are quickly bored and want to find something more exciting and amusing, right? That is why 3 out of 100 people become rich, because they do the boring things, they stick to the plan, and they follow through, right? Most people start following a plan, and then they are soon bored. I mean, that was like mic drop for me last night as I'm reading, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so true. People can't sit down here at the desk and create and produce and follow the dream, because guess what? Johnny and Joe are down the street at the happy hour, or tonight's the soccer game or the softball game. And listen, man, I get it, but you're not going to become successful if you can't get used to doing the boring stuff.
Yeah, that's profound. And I tell people, when they ask me about my book, and I'm like, well, you know what? There's nothing new in my book. There's nothing earth-shattering in my book. It is what you've heard. It is what you've been taught. It is what works. I am just re-emphasizing it. It is to, develop that unbeatable mindset, quiet your mind. I choose meditation, so I talk about that. And the most important thing is to get a good night's sleep, right? So use your mind, use your biochemistry, use your physiology, and set that base. And that's been said forever.
Right.
It's been said forever. So there's nothing new in that. It's boring.
Right. And you got to realize too that what makes it unique is you. And that's it, right? The principles of success have not changed in hundreds of years. They just don't. Everybody has a new spin to it. And while I think that, the individual who's co-creating and creating brand new work based on them believing that they can do it, and them stepping outside the comfort zone, because that's usually where the buck stops, right? Oh, I can't do it. Todd's thinking, oh, you know what, man, nobody wants to read my book. And I say, oh man, you're stuck. Like if you don't believe it, then let's guess what? You're not going to make it. Right. And so just conquering some of those things are by definition, I think, what personal growth means, and getting through those. And yes, it's Todd, what you're teaching, man, sleep and meditation is very important. And I know today's day and age with things and attention spans being so little, and with technology, as we talked about briefly before this started, we're not going to go that route because I don't know it about technology. But, it's so easy for people to see the videos and listen to the podcast. You got to hustle. And listen, I'm like, I get it. You got to hustle, but you also got to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. But that comes back down to understanding what your clock is like and how you operate. And you get to that point by doing the work on yourself to find out who you are. Right. And so I think a good nugget to help people to walk away with that. And I all I can do is tell you what I've done and how I've learned now at a more advanced level from a lot of the thought leaders that I spend very, very high level quality time with and pass it through, right? But the first thing that I did was take control of my thoughts. I didn't realize how disempowering my thinking was until I was around an individual that owned the company that I was working for after I got sober. This was days after I got sober. And he had the lifestyle. Like, if that guy has what I want, he has the freedom, he has the money, he has the lifestyle, he has the contribution. What is he doing to get that? And so I just listened, and he told us exactly what he did. And guess what I did? I just went and modeled exactly what he did. And within a few days of watching empowering videos on YouTube and TED Talks, which is what he suggested he did when he woke up every day, I got plugged into this idea of taking control of your thoughts. And, by nature, that just led me down this path, because now is like when I would hear a video and they would give me a step to do, I would do it, right? And I would literally stop in my tracks, because what I was doing is I was rewiring my brain and I was creating a new discipline. And listen, when you can rewire your brain and you can create a new discipline, oh my God, you feel like, dude, I feel like I am there right now. Like, I'm feeling it in this present moment, but I feel like it was a couple of years ago where I was literally having the breakthrough of my life. And I was like, oh my God, you're not going to stop me at this point, because now I've just removed the barrier and the concrete wall that was holding me back. And when a human being discovers their essence and their power, you're just like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? It's like, I should be in the Avengers. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I should be in there fighting and saving the world, man. That's what it's like.
That is incredible. One of the things I teach, and I've done a podcast episode on this, is something I call the power of the morning routine. And I didn't make that up. I got that from listening to TED Talks. I got that from, I got a couple of YouTube channels that, focus on motivational that I go and I hit every morning. It's part of my morning routine. What I get up and do, I set up, and what works for me is setting up what I do in the circadian cycle of the earth. So I'm usually up early, in the bed early, and in between, I am just hammering it out. So, that I believe if you win that first hour of the day, you win the day, right? And that's what I've gathered from doing exactly what you just talked about, going out there, modeling people. What are they doing to get successful? Hustle. But there's also, I'll put an asterisk on that, hustle in accordance with your intention,
right?
What you want to do, what life you want to lead.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. There are a lot of different shapes and sizes of environmental conditioning and modeling options and following the right role models. I mean, indirectly, podcast, right? Here we are on a podcast right now. I mean, you can easily go pick up and listen to anybody that you've followed or that you've heard about and listen to what they do and how they perform on a daily basis. You can easily go pick up the book, right? Like, Zig Ziglar is gone, but I've got his book right here, right? I mean, he put all his information in that book. And then I've got real life mentors who I work with and travel around the country that, are the aces of the industry. And I spend time with them on a daily basis. And what you'll have to disseminate is what each one brings to the table in coordinates with, how often you're learning from them or listening to them and start to extract things that you can then start to apply into your own life. And what I want you to pay close attention to is the skill set that they have, right? Because you don't want to lose yourself in the fact that you're becoming that person, because you don't want to become that person. You want to become you at your highest level, but with an arsenal of skills, right, and knowledge that they've passed on to you through whatever vehicle that is, that you can then go out and apply to your own personal life and or business. And it's very powerful, because my mentor now that I travel around the country with, Bill Walsh, he's got a different style, right? And so all I do is watch what he does, but without him, I'm not, I've already been on 106 stages this year. I've spoken on 106 stages in 14 states, and we're only half the year done, right? I put that against anybody. I don't think anybody spoke as much as I have this year. I just don't. Without him bringing me up to his level, I don't get the reps. I don't get the at-bats. Remember this, repetition is the mother of all skill. I firmly believe that, right? So, the question on top of that is, what are you doing on a regular basis to prepare? What are you doing on a regular basis to drill and rehearse and role play? And I think those are, 4 critical components that most people don't do, because it's not sexy. Once again, it's boring. So we go back to that boring thing, right? And by watching Bill, do his thing and command a room, hundreds and hundreds of people, having been a legend in the speaking business for a long time, I can't expect him to come to me and sit me down and say X, Y, Z. He won't do that. His method is, here's your opportunity. I'm going to be up here. It's my job to be in tune with where I'm at, to say, okay, well, he's not this type of guy that's going to be like, Manny, sit down. You need to do X, Y, and Z and map it out for me. But if I'm smart enough, I'll watch what he does and I'll pick it up that way. And then I'll start to try it in my own life. And then there will be some mentors that I've got that will sit down and have a thorough conversation with you and help you draw some stuff out. And that's a different relationship. But, knowing in that case, you've got to be completely aware of where you're at in that situation, will help you be able to take away in a very ethical way. Not take away as like you're taking, but take away the information as best as you can.
Yeah. And I love what you said about repetition. I have basically 2 signs in my office that when I'm looking across that I see all the time. And the first one is just think. Just sit down, make sure you're thinking. Let your brain get active about it, because it will direct you where you need to go. The second one, and this again these are 2 boring things, is consistency. That's the repetition, making sure you're getting up day in and day out and doing what you need to do. It's kind of like when you go into a gym, right? Everybody wants to go in there and you see this guy and he's lifting twice as much weight as you did, or you see this woman and she's lifting twice as much weight as you did. And it's like, it's not a competition. You're in there to improve yourself. Go do your thing, right? Do your job. And that's the boring part. That's
it's intimidating.
The repetition. Yeah.
It is. It is. You're right, man. And consistency is probably the key component of consistency with persistence, right? Of delivering upon the success level that you can reach. And, it's not easy. Listen, man, if I was to tell you that everything that I do this day is perfect, you're wrong, right? Yeah. If I was to tell you that, I get up and there's things that I do where I'm totally in control and I'm not fearful, that's bullshit, right? I mean, I get up on stage in new environments a lot of the times, man, I still have fear. But here's something that I learned, right? Successful people, and I also like to say the very wealthy people, are always acting in spite of fear, right? They feel it too. They're human beings. It's always going to be there. Working out sucks, dude. Working out. Listen, I don't get up every day and say, I want to go to the gym. It's going to be like, it's for me personally, I absolutely hate it. I'm telling you straight up. I just had this conversation with myself 2 days ago. I'm like, I hate being here, but here's what I know. Check this out. Your body's a temple, right? And the matter of fact is, if you've decided to play at a high level, or with whatever level you've decided to play at, you're only going to put yourself in a position to do that even better if you take care of your body. You feed it the right food. You regularly exercise. And you generate energy from that. And you realize that your mind, like you said earlier, sleep, also included in this. Your mind is going to go to your body for extra energy when it gets tired. And if you're really cranking in the desk, and behind the scenes, and guess what? If you're not eating healthy, and if you're, lacking on the gym, you're gonna fall off. And this is where I think the elite stand out. They've realized how important it is for their body to be equally maxed out, and they treat it the same way. Because when I'm 60, I don't want to be 250. And I'm not, and trust me, I'm not hitting anybody about where they're at. I'm just helping them realize, like, for peak performance and optimization of what you do, it's only going to make you better. It's only going to help you stay out longer and in more conditioned state and mentally alert and higher focused and more productivity. You see where I'm coming with that? And
I see it totally.
They don't think of that part of it, dude, because it's like completely and independently on its own. But when I look at some of the people I work around and they're doing what they're doing at a high level, and I'm already doing what they're doing, I'm 32, they're 45, 52, 55, 60, and they're slow. We go out to dinners every night, and they eat, large meals after midnight or even after 9 p.m. They go to bed. I'm eating a salad and some fruit, and I'm up at 6 a.m. working the gym. I'm like, I am ready to absolutely dominate, right? That is where my mind is. And it's not going to be shaken, because when you make that target for yourself, for everybody out there that's listening, and you've decided where you want to end up, you'll understand that that's equally a part of your success as any other thing that you're doing. And it's so profound, and I hope that people realize that, because we talk about the gym. It's not something that you might enjoy doing, but it's something that you can get used to, and you can find yourself starting to appreciate. And when you take it seriously and you realize that it's so integral to your overall success, I think you'll start to have a more sincere approach to it.
Yeah. In my book, Reignite, I talk about all those aspects. I focus on kind of from the neck up, I call it, the mindset, the meditation, the sleep. But I also talk about the importance of bringing in nutrition, exercise, and just movement. Movement is what I focus people on. Just get up and start moving. I know I'm doing this podcast sitting down, but I have a standing desk that I usually do it from, right? But it's somewhere else and somebody's in that room, so I'm not going to go there. And that, I've brought on guests that focus specifically on nutrition and fitness. It's all a part of it. It's holistic. Everything is interconnected. You can't master one without the other. It's all interconnected. And that's why this podcast is dedicated to bring all of it into play.
Yeah, no, I like your approach there, and I think that when I call it the Wheel of Fortune is what you're talking about with holistic. You've sliced the pie into, depending how many areas you got, it could be 6, 7, 8 slices, right? You've got, career, you've got business, you've got spiritual, you've got emotional, you've got financial, you've got physical, right? You've got nutrition. So those slices of the pie. I'm drawing a circle here, so use your imagination. And you got the donut hole in the middle, and you slice it out. All of those areas of your life need the same TLC, tender loving care. And most of the time, everybody always puts all of their eggs into one slice or 2 slices max. And so, sure enough, it's like the full days of work. They're cranking out 12 hours at work all day, and by the time they're done, they go home, they're tired, they don't want to go and, they don't want to make a smoothie, so they stop because it's too much time, it's too much effort after an exhausting day. So they'll stop at McDonald's, they'll get a Big Mac because it's easy. And then they'll say, well, I'm too tired to go to the gym. So they don't go to the gym after work or even before work. And I'm like, whoa, this is backwards, right? It's like, you got to make that time for you. That has to be number one. Like, if you can't do it after work because you're too tired, then you need to schedule the time to do it before work. Wake up an hour earlier, stop being lazy, get your ass out of bed and go get it done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
What's your priority?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And how are you scheduling this stuff? That's a whole separate conversation. Right. That's why I love these podcasts, because there's so much. Every person that comes on a podcast has so much of their own unique vantage point and unique perspective. And for those people that tune in, man, your job is to just take away one little thing. Don't try to do everything. I've learned that these types of podcasts and YouTube videos, there's always something that you can learn. All kinds of events, man. And so if you're ever thinking like, I can't afford to go to these events, just you can't afford not to. You need to be there because one idea or one partnership or one new collaboration can change your entire life forever. I'm telling you, when I started my podcast, which I no longer do because my motive has switched to making lots and lots of money, and we are doing that. It's become, when I first started, I knew that the podcasting for me was a vehicle. So I'd go to events and I'd seek out the speakers and I'd say, oh, I want to speak to that guy. And sure enough, by doing that, for those people out here that are listening, what I'm trying to explain to you is the point of getting one thing out of it is that, I would go seek these people out and I'd walk up to them without them having a clue of who I was. And I'd say, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Right. And sure enough, because of that, I'm giving you a great tool here, man. I mean, these people, like, for any event that's in the Phoenix area, wherever you're listening in from, realize that the speakers are there and they have influence, and they are, most of them are ready to serve at a high level and would be happy to share their message. Take a step outside the comfort zone, do the unknown. And guess what? Because of that, it led me to, and I'm sure you know how this is, all kinds of, New York Times bestselling authors, multimillionaires, professional athletes. And here we are, years later, and it paid off. Like that particular part of my life, it paid its dues. It did what it was supposed to do. And now, as a result, we are here where we are today. So if you've just got, I tell people all the time, your mind is like a parachute, right? It only works when it's open. You jump out of the plane and the parachute doesn't open. Guess what? It's not a good day.
It's a bad
right?
day.
A very, very bad day. In life, when you are going through it, if your mind is not open to new ideas and new opportunities and new information and new wisdom and insight, you're spiritually and emotionally dead. Like you're just, it's almost just as bad as being physically dead because you're just cruising, like you're coasting through life, and you're really just existing and you're not living. It just sucks. It's no fun that way. So really, if you could plug into that, that'd be fantastic.
And I paused here for a specific purpose because what Manny just talked about is really what Reignite is all about. It's about living with passion, living with purpose, living the life you want. And so if you're not there, the avenue's there. The secrets are there, the keys, the nuggets. And I hope you took something away from this. So before I let Manny go, I got to ask him one final question. And that's that one nugget advice that he wants to give on how you can reignite your life.
Think bigger. Think bigger. Listen, it takes the same amount of energy for you to think small as it does for you to think big, right? I mean, why not shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars? Or if that's the right quote, I don't even give a shit. The matter of the fact is that I'll shoot for Pluto and land on Uranus. How about that one, right? That's a pretty good one. Just think about how you can always level up, right? And maximize the opportunities by putting yourself in a position to capitalize on the abundance of opportunities that are available out there to you. And thinking bigger will certainly put you in the pathway to meet many of those opportunities that are really seeking you out at the same time.
Wow. I'm going to leave that one right there. That was so powerful. Well, thank you, Manny, for being on the Reignite podcast. This has been a joy. And to everybody out there, for full disclosure about getting out there and putting your intention out, how Manny ended up on the podcast is that my wife saw him speak and said, you have got to get this guy on your podcast. He is perfect. And, gave me some contact information, and we went back and forth, had to reschedule a couple of times. He's here. Manny, you were perfect. That message was powerful, and I want to thank you for being on the podcast today.
Todd, you do a great job, dude, and I'm glad that your wife put it out there. I think that co-creation like this is the currency of the future, and without you showing up every day like the bright light bulb you are, man, full of energy, I can see it through your smile. It radiates, and that's no bullshit. It's straightforward. I appreciate you for that, man, and thank you for allowing me to come on here, and let's continue to chip away at changing the world.
I know, and I love this. This is what life is about. Thanks, Manny.
You do a good job, man. Appreciate you, brother.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Reignite podcast. If this episode resonated with you in any way, please share it with a friend. One of the greatest experiences as human beings is being able to mastermind as a group, where we get together and collectively share and build off of each other's energy. Reigniting is no longer about accepting life as it comes, but designing the life you desire. We are committed to bringing you thought-leading and thought-provoking discussions to inform and motivate you to find joy in your career, no matter what road you choose to take. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Todd Jenkins, or send me an email at toddjenkins.com. I'd love to hear about your struggles, your successes, and your thoughts. Thank you for listening to Reignition. Always remember, joy is not only the destination, but what life has to offer. We'll be back with another full episode on Tuesday and with a short Reignite message on Friday just to jumpstart your weekend. Until then, keep that fuse lit and reignite.